The following audio is via a Skype call.
Power comes from an inner knowing, inner joy, inner awareness, inner freedom, and a higher power. The Art of Powerful Living Radio with Robert Schoenfeld is here to inspire every human to live lives that are rich, fulfilling, on purpose, and fun. Get ready to take this journey and discover the power of joy in all aspects of life. This show is life transforming. You will hear Dr. Pat and Robert discuss topics on joy, love, art, and expanding our minds to what's possible. Join Dr. Pat Basile and Robert Schoenfeld in the Art of Powerful Living Radio, starting right now.
Yeah, everybody, my friend Robert is joining me here today. He is a gifted artist. He is an author. He's a joy activist. He's a teacher. He's a healer. He's a radio host and a dancer as well. And today, what we're doing is something I've been so excited to talk with him about, and that's living life as a great adventure. And, you know, that means something different for each of us. But you can see with Robert out in the world now, and those of you that are watching on Facebook Live, by the way, you're going to get to see some of his art. You're going to get to see what this means. But when we think about living life as a great adventure, it really begs the question, are you really doing that? Are you living life as a great adventure? Or are you a great adventure wannabe? Robert, it's great to have you here.
Wonderful to be here, Dr. Pat. Always good to be with you.
I love this. I love the whole idea about great adventure. I love the show. And many people don't know this about you, but if they're watching on Facebook Live, they're going to look in the background. There's a piece of your art in the background. You're an artist. Today, throughout the show, we're going to talk about your new art. We're going to talk about you out in the world, as well as share with our listeners what this art is about. But more importantly, today it's about living the adventure. What does that mean to you?
Sure. Well, let's just start with everybody in this world is looking for two things, joy and meaningfulness. And living the adventure gives you both. So let's start in sync together if we can.
Yeah.
I always like to do this, Dr. Pat.
Yeah.
There are basically 35,000 people all over this country, all over the world listening to us. Let's get into sync and let's do this adventure together, okay? So if everybody would take a breath in, hold it for a second, and a breath out. And we're going to do it one more time. And this time, put a smile on your face as if you're living the adventure you want to live. Breath in. And a breath out. And now we're going to do it one more time. And this time, as if you've lived the most fulfilled life you've ever could imagine. Let's take a breath in. And a breath out. Now we've already done the adventure.
I got to tell you what happened to me just then.
Okay.
So what happens when people do that? I know you work with people all over the world. I know you teach people so many different things. And that is something that we don't do enough. Because what happened to me is I got an image.
Good.
See, we already set the stage that we have our mindset on the adventure.
Exactly. But let me explain something. The power of numbers, when two people or more come together, when 35,000 come together, when 1 million come together, when 1 billion come together, powerful. And we're going to talk about that too. I've done many retreats where we go together with meditators, TM meditators, all the world, whether it be Israel, Europe, Fairfield, Iowa, Washington, D.C., where we bring thousands of people together. And that coherence creates a softening effect in the whole atmosphere. And it softens things so there's less hospitalization, the stock market goes up, people feel better, and life goes better. And we'll talk about that a little later. I really recommend everybody stay tuned for this whole hour. It's going to be a rock and roll adventure. And I'm going to tell you my story. And the reason I'm going to tell you my story is to hopefully inspire you to go out and live your story, to really take it up a notch, or maybe even 10 notches, or maybe even 100 notches, and get out there and live this life and have a blast doing it.
Yeah, and let's start with your story because I think it's important. You and I both have stories. We didn't just pop out one day and all of a sudden here we are. As a matter of fact, if you listen to the last hour, you heard Elisa say that I'm the type of person I've had to work very hard for everything. Things don't come easy. But there is a journey, there is a story, and you're here today to share yours. Where would you like to start?
Well, why don't we start at the beginning? I was born here in Seattle. The year, I'm gonna date myself here. The year was 1952, March 20th. And why that's special to me is my grandfather, Max, was born exactly 70 years before me on the same day. So we got to celebrate our birthdays together. He lived to be 108 and a half.
Wow.
So, and he was the most amazing man, one of the most amazing men I've ever met. So we can talk about that later. But anyway, born in Seattle and was very fortunate to grow up on Mercer Island, a beautiful location with wonderful parents.
Oh.
My father was very unique in his way of living life and wanting us to be unique individuals and get out and explore life. And we went on great boat trips together and family trips all over the country. And we'll talk about that too. But let's talk about fourth grade, because fourth grade was a pivotal point in my life. And everybody's had this. Everybody's had a great teacher that really made that difference. And here's the story. It's a cute story. So here I am, fourth grade, 9 years old, sitting in class, and the teacher's putting on a movie. And the movie's of Jackson Pollock. And if you know who Jackson Pollock was, he was one of the most famous artists in the 60s, 50s, and 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
His paintings sell for upwards of $60 million now. And he was a drip painter. He just poured paint on the canvas and, had fun. So here's the movie. And I'm almost sure it was of Jackson Pollock. So it was this artist, and he was up in Cape Cod. He had a nice little beach cabin. And he laid this big board. It was like 8 feet by 10 feet out, white, on the beach. And he got up on his deck, and he got a flare gun. And he put a little bit of blue paint in the flare gun and shot it up and splat on the board. Got some red paint, splat. Yellow paint, black paint, and splat. Let it dry. And the next day, he cut it up into small little pieces like this, little, 2 foot by 3 foot sections. The next day, a helicopter lands on the beach. A man with a 3-piece suit gets out, carrying a briefcase. And he points at 2 of them, loads them up in the helicopter and takes off. And the narrator says, and even the small ones sell for $10,000. I go, this is a great way to make a living. That changed my life, Doctor, I swear. So from then on, I was, either subconsciously or consciously, that was my path in life. And I followed it ever since. And I really didn't take an art class until high school. I went to Mercer Island High School, senior year. I had all my requirements done. So I took a ceramics class just for fun. That's where all the cute girls were. So decided to get out and play. Fell in love with it.
Well, I mean, part of what we're talking about too, though, is let's break that down. One, you got to be awake enough to even be paying attention to that movie, right? Let's start there, because that's a key element to really living the adventure, our purpose. You got to be awake enough to know, oh, that sounds good. I think I want to do that. Number one. Number two, you have to be aware enough, right, to know that this thing starts to pick up energy within you, right?
Exactly.
The energy builds, the momentum builds.
Exactly. And like any adventure, you need a foundation. So here's kind of what I came up with at a very young age, at the age of 9. Basically, if you're going to go on an adventure, you need like 4 or 5 things to go with you, to put into your essence. Number 1, a generous and a happy heart. If you can walk through life with a generous and a happy heart, adventure will follow you everywhere you go. Next is wisdom, clear thinking, and clear goals. Okay? Every person that's positive thinking knows about that. But here's the other side of that. Even though you have clear goals, let go and let life take you. Remember that song, Merrily, Merrily, or how does it go? Row, row, row your boat?
Yeah.
Down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is better. Sometimes it's nice just to let life take you down that stream and just to put a smile on your face and to glide. And then the other one that's very important is courage. And courage is so important in the adventure because sometimes there's some scary things. And I'm going to tell us some very cool, scary adventures I went through that were actually, I'm glad I'm here because there was a chance that I wouldn't make it through some of these adventures, but to have courage, to have the power inside you to go where no other man or no other woman has ever gone before. And you put those 4 or 5 things together, and your life is going to be a very, very exciting adventure.
Well, I think that those are important to talk about because, one of the things you said, and I want to touch upon this a little bit, and let's, go ahead and skip the break here if we could, and we'll just keep chatting about it. One is that you're going to get some challenges in life. There might be some things that happen. And, we get to be in these points of decisions and time. We get to think about where's our heart calling for. I want to ask you this. When was the first time, Robert, that you had a sense that your heart was leading the way and not always your mind? Because we can make real logical. When did you feel your heart, right? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And again, I think it was back in 4th grade. I remember I would spend a lot of my time daydreaming. And whenever you're daydreaming, that's when the mind lets go and the heart opens up. So I really recommend, in schools, have a session, an hour of daydreaming every day and let people draw or whatever they want to do. But I would recommend everyone spending some quiet time and daydream and just explore where you want to go, what you want to do with your life. Because we're all running around. It's 24/7 these days. And if you really want to have an adventure, you've got to step back and see who you are, where you want to go, and what you're all about. What's the purpose of your life? What's the focus of your life? Where do you want to put your energy? Where do you want to put your time? And you can't do that if you're running 24/7. Stepping back, meditation, walks, whatever it might be, so important before you even start your adventure.
Well, and then part of this, too, is now we're into the idea of exploration. Because if you're going to take an adventure, then somehow in there may be that you got to little walk on the wild side. We got to be a little bit like a little wild thing, right? Like a wild thing. So you have that. I have that. We have part of that adventurous nature, but it also takes a little bit of courage to walk on the wild side. How did you do that? How did you walk on the wild side?
Okay, so let me back up a little bit too. Once again, it's foundation. I was very fortunate to be a Boy Scout, a Cub Scout before that. I actually went all the way to Eagle Scout. And what scouting does, it takes you out camping, gives you leadership skills, but the most important thing it gives is confidence, self-reliance, and a knowledge that as things come up that I can handle them, And when you have that inside you, then you can go out and take care of these challenges. And so I really recommend any parents that are listening to this, if you have boys or girls, Girl Scouts also, get them involved in scouting or a program like that to help them build those skills so that when they're ready for their adventure, they have that confidence, that self-reliance, and that ability to take care of situations as they arrive. Very, very important.
I think that sometimes, we make a judgment about the word adventure, but I want to talk about it for a little bit because there's no judgment around the word, meaning that when I hear you talk about it, for some people, an adventure might mean maybe simply even thinking about taking an art class. We let our minds step out and to become a little bit more adventurous in our thoughts. So we're not all talking about we're all going to get on go join a group and climb Mount Everest. We're not really talking about that. Could you say a little bit more about that? Because sometimes when we talk about it, people may think, I'm not really that adventurous. I'm not going to be wild, what these two are talking about. But that's not really what we're saying.
Exactly. And so, the story I'm going to tell you in a little bit is an amazing story, but it's much easier as a single person because I'm my own person. I can go where I want to go and do what I go. Many who are listening here are married, have families. What I'll like to talk about is how to live a great adventure as a family. And there are many ways to do that. In fact, my attitude towards this, the greatest adventure anyone can ever have is having children and raising wonderful children. That's the greatest adventure. But I'll tell you what, another adventure you can have is go inward. I meditate every day. I take, 24 hours off every week on Saturday. So it's a quiet time. And that in its own right, to go inside is an adventure too. And it's what comes out after you go inward that is fantastic also. So there's an inward adventure, there's an outward adventure. But I really want to emphasize anyone who feels stuck in a marriage or a family saying, oh, I can't get out, I can't go to Paris, I can't, do this. There is so much you can do as a family. In Seattle Magazine, there are 25 adventures this month on the cover, and they're really great adventures you can do within an hour's drive of Seattle. So get out next weekend, take your family out to Mount Rainier, to the ocean, whatever. Start small, have fun as a family, and make your whole family an adventure. The way you cook for your family, make it an adventure. The way that you say goodbye, to your husband as you're going out, make that an adventure. The way that you do your job, make that an adventure. You can, anything that you're doing that's worthwhile, you can make an adventure. It's all attitude, Dr. Pat.
I want to talk about one thing in particular, too, as we're discussing this, because a lot of times people don't want to venture along and even explore art. And they don't want to do it because they don't want to not be good enough, or they're afraid of failure, or they're afraid of flunking out, or they're afraid of all that. But I'll tell you, my life, I've got a few flunking out moments in my life. I actually have quite a few of them.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about this, because I think sometimes folks might think that, we say we're going to do something and it's like the movie The Secret, then we go out and do it. But I don't know about you. I've had a few starts, a few stops, a few stalls, a few backing them up without a camera in the vehicle. But let's talk about the idea of that. Sometimes we do not always show up. We're not always number one. We do flunk out. We do have, and that's our language to describe it. It doesn't mean we feel like failure.
Yeah, and you're right. It's terminology. It's too bad that the English, in our society looks at when you're taking a step back, that's a failure.
Yeah.
It's a cliche, of course, to say that, when you fail, it's one of the best things that could happen to you if you can get up and jump, get going again. If that failure drags you down and that's, keeping you down, then you're right. There's a problem here. But what if we could look at even our backwards as an adventure? And when I tell you the story of when I went to the Kansas City Art Institute, I'm going to tell you how, as I came in, I was a rising star. And then all of a sudden, the second semester, I was like this at the bottom and almost got kicked out of school. And then I got back up to being a star again. I'll tell you that story. It's a great story. But your point is so well taken, Dr. Pat. If we can look at what we call a step backwards or a failure as really just an opportunity to get up and do it again, or do something better, or get it, to change paths and to find the right path, that's exciting. That's part of the adventure,
Well, I think that, there's something that we step back and we learn from. Have you ever felt that way about your art?
Boy, I've been rejected to some shows, but I've always had, because what my art is to me is joy. I can't wait to get up in the morning and go and paint. And I paint every day except for on Saturday. I haven't painted yet today, so I can't wait till the show's over so I can go down to my studio and paint. And what's nice is my studio's in my basement, so I've second commute time every day. But I just get so much joy. And that's what happened when I told you I took a ceramics class in high school.
Yeah.
I fell in love with the process, the creative process, the idea of creating something with my own hands, my own ability, that's something beautiful and that's lasting. And that's what I recommend everybody do. Find something that you can create. And that's where I get back to family. If you can create a beautiful family, beautiful children, beautiful spouse, beautiful marriage, that is the best creation you could ever do. Then if you do something physical, like pottery or painting or dance or, ping pong or whatever it might be, excel in something, just to be the best you can be in something, and to enjoy it. Take some classes. Like you mentioned before, I'm a dancer. I go out dancing 3 or 4 nights a week. Love it. That's my way that I physically, with my body, express my art. But I took classes for years, and I highly recommend doing that, because when you come to the level of proficiency everything is more fun. And then you can kind of be more creative too. You can ad lib and throw in some extra things and have more playfulness with it. Adventure is always more fun with playfulness. And life is more fun with playfulness.
Well, and one thing leads to another. I mean, I think in your case too, and folks on Facebook are seeing some of your art now as we're talking about this. One thing leads to another, and I think in your case, you decided to take the adventure out. Going to Israel to learn transcendental meditation, right? To think about what this means to be a painter, to explore various aspects of art. Pottery, all of the above. But see, the key to all of that is that you were willing to take that step. You were willing to say, I love doing this.
Exactly.
I'm going to pursue it. What do you find is one of the most motivational aspects that keeps you going? Even in the face of failure or rejection, because I know for me, I was rejected pretty much by every university except one that I applied to. But there's something that keeps us going, right?
Right. And I think it has to do with my faith in life.
Yeah.
So, like you mentioned, Dr. Pat, I'm a potter, a painter, and different things. So let me tell the story of how I got there, because everything that I'm going to tell you here is a foundation and a basis of how I got there. And it's just a fun ride with ups and downs and little adventures. But if everybody listening could kind of come along, put a smile on their face, take another deep breath, and just say, go with us, right, as if you're almost watching a movie of, my life. So here we go. So as I mentioned, after high school, I graduated. As soon as the next day, I was off to London. My uncle had a factory in Scotland, and he wanted me, at the age of 19, to help go set up and be an executive at this factory in Scotland. So here I was, going to be, a 19-year-old kid joining the corporate world. So spent a week in London, was wonderful. It was the 70s in London. London was the swinging city at that time. Went up to this little town called Glenrothes, helped set up the factory. Got totally stressed out in the corporate world, too much responsibility. But I got a phone call about a month in from my uncle saying, hey, taking my family to Italy, want you to come and join us. So I flew down to Switzerland, took a train across the Alps, which was one of the most beautiful train rides you could ever take through the Alps, and landed in Milan, spent a couple of days in Milan, went to Venice, which is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And as a future artist, all this is coming into me, to be in the canals and see the beautiful architecture in Venice, going to Lake Como, where you've got beautiful mountains shooting up on the other side. Just fell in love with Italy. Came back that summer after working in Scotland, went to Western Washington University, and again, stressed out. Wasn't enjoying school at all. Got into a ceramics class, which was great, and very hard to do as a freshman, but got in and was making some good pots. Anyway, after my first year of Western, stuck out my thumb, hitchhiked to Montana, down to the Tetons. Now, let me tell you the story of the Tetons, because this is one of the most amazing stories of my life. And to give a backup story, when we were younger, when I was probably about 8 or 9, my father and mother rented a camper, and the four of us, the 4 kids, 6 of us all together in the camper, went from Seattle up into Canada, up into Banff, Lake Louise, and then down to Yellowstone and the Tetons. The Tetons are very beautiful mountains just south of Yellowstone, and they're very jagged. They shoot 14,000 feet out of the prairie in Wyoming.
Wow.
Gorgeous, gorgeous mountains. So at the age of 6 or 7, I go, I'm going to climb those mountains someday. So here was my opportunity. I'm now 20 years old, just my freshman year in college, hitchhiking around the country, and I'm going to go climb the Tetons. No experience mountain climbing. So what I did is I hitchhiked all the way around the Tetons to the Idaho side, and this is June, and there's still plenty of snow up there, and I was with a guy, and you don't want to be up there alone. You don't want to solo. So I had a guy with me, and we were hiking up, and we stayed overnight one night before we were going to go over the pass, and the pass is a huge climb. He decided to go back. So here I was deciding, am I going to go back with him, or am I going to go climb? And I go, I promised myself I was going to climb this mountain. So I soloed it. And this was
Wow.
without any kind of map to speak of. And the scariest thing I probably ever did in my life, the biggest chance I ever took in my life, was there was a very big river. And I was following this river, and the river was running really high with snow melt. And there's what's called a snow bridge, where there was snow over the river. And I had to cross that to continue up. But I could see the river was kind of hitting the bridge, and it could collapse any second. And I took my stick to try and see if the bridge was going to hold me. I was carrying a 60-pound pack on me, and I was pretty much exhausted because it was a really hard climb. But I did it. I went over that bridge, and I made it. And I'm sure within hours after I made it, it collapsed. If it had collapsed under my weight, I would not be here. So that is one time I really felt that the angels were with me, possibly God was with me, because it was really dicey. And if I was going to do it now, I wouldn't do it.
Wow.
It was too chancy. So that was a real adventure, Dr. Pat. But the adventure wasn't over. So here I am climbing up this mountain, and there's a pass. And there's one on the left, and there's one on the right, and the Grand Tetons in the middle. And I could choose either the left one or the right one. The left one, I would have not made it. I did choose the right one. And when I got to the pass, the wind was blowing so hard, I had to get down on my hands and knees and crawl the last one. I got over the pass in snow. And I had this pack on. It was amazing. And then when I got to the other side, there was a big glacier. So I just took the stick and slid down the glacier. And then by the time I got down into the woods, I was feeling really macho, looking back at the mountain, going, wow, I made it. I promised myself I was going to do it. I made it. So I wasn't through yet, Dr. Pat. As I'm walking down the path, it's a very narrow, path down to the Teton village, and there's a moose coming up the other way. And it's a male moose with his big antlers. You can see there's still fur on the antlers because it's springtime. And he was walking up, and I was walking down, and I was feeling pretty macho, so I wasn't going to move, off the trail. But he was coming up, and we were probably about 30 feet away from each other. I was very smart. I walked off the trail, and he just passed nonchalant, not even looking at me. If I had gone another 10 feet, he would have taken me out. So it was a good thing that I, surrendered at that point. And then I was walking down, and there's, this man and his family, saw me, and he goes, "Where'd you come from?" I go, just pointed up there. And it was really that feeling of I accomplished something that I promised myself I was going to do. And that was one more time where I really gave myself, more confidence in life to move forward, because I knew now that I accomplished something I promised myself, something that was very challenging, and now I was on my way. But that's only the start of my adventure.
Oh, but you know what I love about this is it really points to something that we talk about a lot on the show, and that is you have to get into action. You have to take whatever the daydream is and convert it to action. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to let you know how you can find out more about Robert, how about Robert's art, all of the above. And when we come back, the adventure is not over. Where does this now lead Robert Schoenfeld to go? And are you so longing for your own adventure? When we come back, it is more than just do it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
A word of caution: if you prefer the status quo and you are not interested in improving every aspect of your life, this book will trigger the shift out of you. The Truth is Funny, Shift Happens is available now. Author Colette Steffen brings the powerful knowledge and life-changing energy and empowerment from the radio airwaves to the pages of her new book. To get your copy in paperback or ebook, visit thetruthisfunny.com today.
Have you ever wondered if there's a way to heal the deep, hidden inner issues, wounds, beliefs, and traumas? The journey into spiritual healing engages people in all areas of their lives to heal themselves and others. Tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio as Dr. Jaffe brings conversations of healing of body, mind, and spirit as he merges the excellence of traditional medicine with the beauty of spiritual healing. For more information about Dr. Jaffe, this show, and his work, visit drjaffemd.com.
The Knowledge Book, currently studied in 39 countries and 15 languages around the world, accelerates our evolution, takes us out of depression, offers universal truth, protects us, and makes us stronger, both spiritually and physically. So if you are interested in the Knowledge Book, visit usa.theknowledgebook.net and tune in to the Knowledge Book Radio with Marge Potasic on TransformationTalkRadio.com.
Is traditional medicine not working for you? Do you still feel as if your health isn't 100%? Here at the Holistic Medical Center, Dr. Nushin Darvish and the qualified staff look through the dimensions of wellness and start a healing plan prioritized to your needs. Our physicians assess the whole you until complete health is achieved. Get the help you need by visiting drdarvish.com or call 425-451-0404.
Are you ready to make deep, lasting, transformative changes? Then tune in each month on Transformation Talk Radio for Susanna Jameson's hit show, Love, Light, Sound Radio. During her show, Susanna inspires and supports spiritually and health-conscious individuals all over the world to reconnect with their hearts, their inner peace, and balance. Love, Light, Sound Radio. Transformation happens here now. For more information, visit SusannaJameson.com.
Are you looking to grow spiritually, expand your consciousness, increase psychic abilities? Well, there's a free app for that. Pure Light offers audios that transmit high spiritual frequencies to help you awaken to your full potential. Hundreds of audios created by some of the world's top energy healers, and many are free. Enjoy the latest in conscious technology and download Pure Light today. To find out more, visit purelightaudio.com.
Hey, everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're talking with Robert Schoenfeld, Living Life as a Great Adventure. This is one artist's story. Today you're hearing his story, not only his story about, what it's like in life to be awake and aware and see the opportunities, but to also create them. And, what is it when you go through life and sometimes you look like you're winning and other times you look like you're not? How do we keep moving forward? And today's really a story about that. It's about your own personal passion, perspective, and how to move forward regardless of what the outside world might show you. Robert, before we talk about Japan and some of your other travels, how can people take a look at your art? Where can they find your art?
Sure. So my website's my last name. It's schoenfeldart.com, and I'll spell that for you. It's SCHOENFELD, and then art.com. So it's schoenfeldart.com. And my email is very easy. It's robert@schoenfeldart.com. And if you want to know more about my art, you can give me a call, 206-722-1988.
Yeah, and I would encourage folks to please go to the website because, Robert and I talking about it doesn't do it proper justice. And I think when you come and you go see the beauty that he's created, you're going to get a sense of how meaningful this story today is. Robert, thank you so much for today. The journey does continue. And before getting to what you're creating today, you went through a bunch of steps, right?
Yeah.
What came next?
This is really fun. And again, the reason I'm sharing this story with everybody here is so that you can possibly bring more adventure into your life and to see how by living more spontaneously, this can all unfold in your own life too. So here we go. So I went back after hitchhiking around the country, California and stuff, went back to Western for my sophomore year, and I wasn't enjoying school. After the second day of class, I decided to quit school and go to Hawaii. So I grabbed a friend of mine named Dave. We hitchhiked down to Phoenix, Arizona, and then hitchhiked down to San Diego and flew to Hawaii. I spent a year in Hawaii. And this is the story. It was a blast. So we got there to the Big Island in Kailua, and we were living on the beach. For 3 months, we just lived on the beach, body surfing, having a great time, eating coconuts. But we didn't have any money. And I'm a pretty skinny guy. And we were, on the beach cracking up this coconut, and it was rotten. And we go, we got to get some jobs here. So I went to a place called the Banyan Court Cafe, and there was a guy named Lorenzo there that ran it, small little cafe in Kailua that's not there anymore. And we said, please, 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 let us wash your dishes for a meal. So he did, because he had to clean up the restaurant every night for himself. He loved the idea of having these two guys clean up his restaurant for him. So if we did that for 9 months, we cleaned up his restaurant every night for a meal. Eventually, I got a job doing carpentry up in the mountains and loved it, building beautiful homes, and lived in Kailua for 9 months, loved it. Then went to Kauai and Maui. So let me tell you some stories on Maui.
Yeah.
Maui has a mountain called Halilakala, 10,000 foot. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Everybody goes up there for the sunrise.
Yeah.
Well, this was many years ago. I actually camped out in the crater, in the cone, one night, and then hiked all the way down 10,000 feet to Hana the next morning. It's a very difficult hike. It's all downhill from 10,000 feet. Once again, just like the Teton story I was telling you, I was feeling pretty macho. And guess what? I was walking down a road, and what was coming the other way? Not a moose, but a big longhorn, bull.
Wow.
That was a fairly narrow road. So it's almost like a rerun of the last story. Here I am feeling pretty macho, coming down, and the bull's coming at me. I'm coming at it. And I moved over to the other side and let the bull move through. It was so funny. That
puts it in perspective, doesn't it, though?
Yeah, same thing. But it was so beautiful to be at Hana. I spent a week at the pools, had a blast there. And then went to Kauai and hiked in the valley, which is 11 miles in the Kahalal Gorges. And as a future artist, this is all, I'm just absorbing God's beauty and just enjoying this beauty. And every moment of it, I had a smile on my face. It was just so beautiful. But there's one thing about Hawaii. It's very laid back, very easy lifestyle. And my attitude was, if I stayed 1 year and a day, it'd be called what's called Pauhana. I would just be living that laid-back life. But I'm an ambitious guy. I've always been. So one day before a year was up, I flew to San Francisco and started the next adventure. So hang on to your seatbelts, because here's another adventure for you. So I hitchhiked up to Redding, California, Shasta College, because they had a great program, great glass-blowing program. And after spending one day at Redding, I decided this isn't fit for me. So I hitchhiked up to Port Angeles. And there's a college called Peninsula College there. And I signed up and went to school there. And they have a great ceramics program. I rented a little cabin on a lake called Lake Sutherland, which is right in the Olympic Mountains, gorgeous spot. And drove every day. I got some friends who rented the cabin. Drove into school every day. Did wonderful ceramics. This is one of the first vases I made. If you're on the video, you can see it.
Awesome.
Little porcelain vase. And graduated from there. And then I was going to do a little trip down to Costa Rica, but I decided to do some pottery workshops along the way that summer with some of the top names, Paul Saulner, David Shaner, and they were great workshops. And ended up in Vernell, Utah, doing a workshop with David Shaner. And after the workshop, he goes, well, what are you going to do? I go, well, I'd like to make pots. He goes, well, if you want to go back to school, you can go to back to Hawaii and have fun. But if you want to get serious about doing ceramics, you got to go to the Kansas City Art Institute. It's the best school in the country. And I go, okay, sounds good to me, but I don't want to go live in Kansas City.
Yeah.
He says, Ken Ferguson, who's the chairman of the ceramics department at Kansas City Art Institute, has a summer cabin in Centennial, Wyoming, 100 miles north of here. Go visit him, tell him I sent you, and see if he lets you in. So I did. I spent 8 days with him firing kills and talking pots. And the funniest story, Dr. Pat, so he liked me and wanted me as a student, no portfolio review, no academic review, the most difficult school in the country to get into for ceramics. And he takes out a notebook paper and says, let this student in. And he signs it. And he says, send this to the register and you'll get into school. And he come in as a sophomore. And I go, but, I've had 2 years of school. I want to come in as a junior. He goes, no, you're coming in as a sophomore.
Uh-huh.
It's a very expensive private school. I didn't want to spend 3 years in Kansas City. 2 years would be okay. And I won that argument. We went back and forth. That's the only argument I won with him. And he crossed out sophomore, put junior. And And it's really, maybe it would have been best if I had. Now, as I tell you the story, you'll see why. Maybe it would have been best for me to spend 3 years there. But anyway, here I am driving down to Kansas City. It's unbelievably hot when I got there, summertime, 100% humidity, 90 degrees, miserable. I go into the kill room, it's a big dome kill room. And there are two women unloading a kills 500 degrees. They've got fireman suits on, asbestos suits with the head thing, the gloves, the jacket, the booties, and they're unloading this kill at 500 degrees. And I go, wow, if the students are this dedicated at this school, this is where I got to go. So
man.
Signed up and spent 2 years in Kansas City at the Art Institute. So here's the story. And it's a very interesting story. So I'm the new kid on the block. Everybody else has been there for 4 years, 2 other years. And so it's kind of hard to come into a school like that as the new kid on the block. But I made it because my work was really good. When I started out, I was really one of the stars and making great stuff. And then my second semester, I hit bottom.
Oh.
Who knows what happened?
Right.
But the pots were lousy, and there was a rumor going around school that Ferguson's going to kick Schoenfeld out. He's not going to be invited back for his senior year. And I don't know if you've ever had your heart into something.
Yeah, boy.
And they're going to take that away from you. It's miserable. And that's how I felt. Like, uh-oh. So Ferguson calls me into the office. This is the last day of school before the summer, junior year. And he sits me down, and I'm petrified. I'm thinking he's saying, Schoenfeld, you're not welcome back. And the first thing he says, okay, Schoenfeld, what are you going to do this summer? I go, well, I'm going to go to the Grand Canyon and go to exploring. He goes, no, you're not. You're going to summer school. And the summer school is the last thing in the world I wanted to do. But at least I felt relieved that he wasn't kicking me out.
Yeah.
So he won that one. I went to summer school. And Dr. Pat, I did worse. I didn't do good at all. And so now there were really rumors going around the school that Schoenfeld wasn't coming back. And so he calls me in the office, and he sits me down, and I'm really scared. And he goes, okay, Schoenfeld, what are you going to do? And I go, I'm going to make tea ceremony pots. And he goes, no, you're not. You're going to make functional pots. But at least I was accepted back in. And by the time my senior year at my graduation and my final critique, let me back up a little bit. There was a rumor going around school right before the graduation that Ferguson said there are only 7 good potters left in Japan, and Schoenfeld could be one of them. Because the work I did was kind of a Japanese tea ceremony and stuff. And here, I can show you a pot. This is a very rustic.
Oh, wow.
And this is part of my graduation piece in Kansas City. This is over 40 years old, a long time ago. But Ferguson, in my critique, goes and puts a star on my forehead and says, Schoenfeld, you go back to Seattle and you'll be a star. So I graduated with honors from the school. So ups and downs. Wow. So I'll tell you a quick story. So once I graduated.
But, part of this story is, the bottom line is that, I had to go to summer school too. I wasn't going to graduate high school. I mean, game over was game over. And summer school wasn't actually that great for me either. And, but we did go. See, that's what I want to say. We went. And part of that is a lesson in humility.
Yes.
It's a lesson in humility, because being able to look and say, I really didn't do all that great here. Man, okay, I'm being given a second chance, a third chance, a fourth chance. See, and you didn't blow by that. That's very key to your story, because you have a ton of those, right?
Yes, exactly.
But then you go on, and you actually go on to really look at, what am I going to do with this? Am I going to be the artist I'm meant to be?
Exactly. So once I graduated, I had a van, and I took my van, and I headed for LA with the idea of heading up the Pacific Coast, finding the most beautiful place in the world, building a studio, and being a potter for the rest of my life. That was the plan. So here I am driving up the coast from Santa Barbara, up through Big Sur, which is beautiful, up to San Francisco, up to Mendocino in the Northern California, and not finding what I'm looking for. The Oregon villages, and then I'm coming up to the peninsula, and I'm coming up right by Port Townsend, and all of a sudden that voice inside me says, look left. And I look left, and Dr. Pat, there's the most beautiful mountain lake right there with the Olympic Mountains shooting 6,000 feet on their side. Gorgeous. And I go, wow, this is it. But I kept driving because I was meeting a friend for dinner that night in Port Townsend. And a couple months later, a friend of mine says, I know you're looking for a cabin on the peninsula. There's a cabin for sale on a lake. Go check it out. So I went and checked it out. Dr. Pat, the cabin was on that lake.
Wow.
And I bought it right then. It's at 220 feet of waterfront. And the cabin actually went over the water. And I built a studio right next to it with 20-foot high ceilings, all glass out to the lake and out the mountains. Let me tell you, I know we're kind of running low on time, but let me tell you an amazing story that happened one winter. The lake froze over, and it was thick. And what happened is, like I told you, my house was over the water. The foundation was in the water. The ice sheet was being blown into the house, and the house was being destroyed. Me and my dog were out, lightning storm night, lights were out, wind was blowing. I had a big post, and I was breaking the ice because otherwise it would have destroyed my full foundation. And finally, I was exhausted, laid back, and the wind stopped right when I laid back and saved the house somehow. That was pretty exhilarating.
I think it's kind of cool because about 30 years ago, I learned a term. And the term was, I was asked, would you go to any lengths for this? Would you go to any lengths? And, for me, it was something so important in my life that I was so down and out that I immediately said, yes, I'll go to any lengths.
Wow.
And so that has now become a reoccurring theme for me. When I find something that I'm passionate about that will do good in the world, that will bring more joy, whatever it's going to be, positivity, I have to ask myself the question, am I willing to go to any length?
Exactly.
And I think that's what you're sharing. My mom called it perseverance.
Right.
But it's a little bit more than perseverance. It's, yes, I'm going to persevere, but I'm going to go to any lengths to restore my vision, my dream, my hope. And that's key to what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I could see you out there with the ice thing.
Exactly. It was great. So here I am, and I love making pots, but I was finding out it was frustrating because I couldn't make enough money to really make a good living. So after about a year or so of making pots, I was thinking, what can I do, Dr. Pat? Sell real estate, become public relations for the Supersonics. But an opportunity came up that was life-changing for me. So I've been doing TM, Transcendental Meditation, for about 6 years. And what happened is, where this ties in, is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the founder of TM, invited 500 of us meditators to go to Israel to meditate for peace. And the story was, back in 1978, President Carter was looking to get peace between Israel and Egypt, Sadat and Begin. And he was working very hard on it, but the peace talks had broken off. And it didn't look like they were coming back together. So the idea was to bring 500 meditators together to Israel to meditate, to soften the effect, to create coherence, because when you bring large numbers of meditators together, it creates that kind of coherence so that this peace could come together. And we did. I jumped on it. And it was a training to get what's called the TM cities, which is an advanced technique in meditation. And we went to the town called Safat, which is in northern Israel. And that's where the Kabbalah is a very spiritual center. And we basically over the whole town, 500 of us from all of the United States. And for 2.5 months, all we did was meditate. We'd wake up in the morning, meditate, have lunch, go for a little walk, come back, meditate, go to bed. So for hours and hours of meditating and learning this city's technique, Dr. Pat, within a month of us being there, the talks were back on between Sadat and Begin. Within 2 months of us being there, they signed the initial peace treaty. And it was just amazing. And it was one of those amazing experiences in my life. Mm. But not only did I learn the city's technique, but I also got a gift then.
Yeah.
I was given the gift, I really feel, from God to go in and stop doing the ceramics and to paint. The colors that I paint with, I could close my eyes and I would see these colors. I would open my eyes and I would see these colors. So even when I was meditating and even when I wasn't meditating, I was like being downloaded with this beautiful inspiration of these beautiful colors. And that's where I got this feeling of invincibility to go back to Seattle, do no more ceramics, and just start painting and be very successful. And I went back to Seattle, My parents took me out for dinner. They wanted to hear all about this, this story, to Israel. And I told them, listen, I'm going to stop doing ceramics. I'm going to start painting. And my dad goes, come on, you're doing great with pottery. You can't paint. But within a couple months, I was winning awards, making 5 to 10 times the income I was doing in ceramics. Felt so much better in myself. A couple months later, my dad comes, puts his arm on my shoulder, says, hey, that decision you made about switching to painting was a good decision. So that's how I became a painter.
And the joy that it brings you. I mean, you can see it in your paintings. You could see the joy, and you could see the creativity, and you could see sort of the flow of your life and how you're using color and, and the emotion of them and, to bring the energy. Because one of the things I hear from you as you share your story is how powerful this idea of harnessing creative energy is. And it really does require, it's almost like a great recipe. You want to have this level of creativity, but this delicious sauce of humility and integrity along the way. I mean, that's really kind of what we're looking at. Your message too, though, and these final minutes we have is every moment is a miracle. And that's your message. Robert, please, again, tell everyone the website, and then let's talk about Live Your Life as a Miracle.
Beautiful, beautiful. So again, my website's my last name, Schoenfeld, schoenfeldart.com, SCHOENFELD art.com. And my email is robert@schoenfeldart.com. So yes, living your life in a miracle. Let's do a test for a second. Here's the way you can test if you're living an adventurous life. If you can wake up every morning with a smile on your face and glory in your heart saying, thank God I'm alive. Mm. Just everybody do that right now. Just say, thank God I'm alive. And if we can get 1 million people every morning to do that, thank God I'm alive. 1 billion people every day, thank God I'm alive. 7.5 billion people together every day saying, thank God I'm alive. We can change this world, Dr. Pat. If you can make your life an adventure, go out and bring joy to this world, not only to yourself, bring creativity to this world, not only to yourself, but to others, and just enjoy the ride, Dr. Pat, we can create a better world. It's not just for our own sake to live life as an adventure. It's for the world, that we can raise the vibration of this whole world by living our life as an adventure.
Wow. Robert, I know we've talked about a lot today, but I want to go back in this last minute or so. I want to go back to how you started. And what that is you've talked about, there are ways and things you've learned about bringing beauty into this world, a sense of immortality to really create and live with the flow of that, to create a better future and to have fun along the way. And what your story demonstrates is how those 4 elements work together to build just a beautiful, beautiful joy tapestry. So thank you so much for that. One last question, and again, your website. What's your personal message? What would you like to leave us with today?
Oh, the personal message is, like you mentioned before, Dr. Pat, that life is a miracle, that every second is a miracle. And once you really can see how just unbelievable life is, your life will become an adventure. So just get out there, have fun in life. And like I say, if you're married with a family, make that family an adventure. That's the most beautiful thing you could possibly do. My website again, schoenfeldart.com. Love to hear from you. Love to share my art with you.
Thank you, Robert. And for all of you, I'm Dr. Pat. If you want to find out more about me, go to the drpatshow.com, or you can go to transformationtalkradio.com. And again, once you go to Robert's website and you take a look at that art, think about what you want to create. And more importantly, give Robert a call. Thank you, Robert. Thank you for the beauty and thank you for the fun. But most importantly, thank you for the joy you bring in the world.
Thank you. Great job, Pat.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for pushing all the right buttons. Stay tuned for another hour on transformationtalkradio.com.
Ciao.
You've been listening to The Art of Powerful Living Radio with Robert Schoenfeld and Dr. Pat Basile. Powerful living doesn't stop here. Join the billions of people around the world in a global moment of joy. Visit globalmomentofjoy.com and discover love, beauty, joy, and happiness because Robert knows you deserve it. And be sure to tune in once a month with Robert Schoenfeld and Dr. Pat Basile for the Art of Powerful Living Radio.
The preceding audio was via a Skype call.